Greetings everyone, welcome to Chess Advanced. This is from Clutch Champions. With the black pieces, we have the current reigning world champion Gukesh Dommaraju facing off against Hikaru Nakamura. So this is going to be an epic roundup. Hikaru played against Hikaru played against Fabiano, and both were able to win one game. This is actually a double round robin, so they're going to in one day there's gonna be 3 rounds, and in each round there's gonna be a double round robin. So basically, in the 2 of the rounds that Hikaru and Fabi played, both games were drawn. And in Gukesh and Magnus's case, one game was won by Magnus and the other game had ended in a draw. This is a game between Gukesh and Hikaru, and this is the first matchup. So without further ado, let's start with this game. Here, Hikaru goes for d4. We have knight to f6, c4, e6, and just knight to c3. This is the East Indian defense, and we have bishop to b4, transposing it into the Nimzo Indian. And here we have e3 castles. Now bishop to d2 and just d5. Now that's how we play Nimzo. And here just going for knight to f3 and c5, just pushing it. And this is the Ragozin, and we know Gukesh, and whenever you know Gukesh, you know that he loves the Ragozin. Here a3 and just bishop captures on c3, bishop captures, and here c captures on d4, and we have just knight captures on d4, and a rook to e8 in this position. And just to move knight to f3, just pushing the knight back, you're gonna move the bishop next and hopefully castle. A knight to c6, we have rook to c1 and just e5. And e5 is a beautiful positional understanding of this position. I mean, e5 is a move, either it's home prepped or definitely he just found it on the board, but a beautiful move nonetheless. I mean, really shows how much understanding that Gukesh has in this position, because now c captures on d5 and he just knight captures, and now those knights on the center of the board are looking very decent. And once you now look at the position, you can see that the initial advantage for being a tempo up for white has gone away, and that is faded because your pieces are not that developed, and black is doing very fine in this position. Here bishop to b5 now, just jumping in and attacking that knight, but here just bishop to g4. And a bishop to g4 in this position is considered as a move not that good, because hey, there was a move that you would want to play in this position, which is this, because you had this very nice move e4 in this position. Because the thing is that here, I mean, in Nimzo setups, that pawn and that knight was already, I mean, targeting that pawn, and the threat is basically just to capture it. And after you capture it, you just eliminate that pawn with the help of the knight, and the thing is that you don't want that to happen. So here just pushing it, and that comes with an attack towards knight as well. So if you go for knight to d4 in this position, I have this very nice queen to g5, and now the threat is obviously simple, and it's not an easy way to be able to try and defend this, because otherwise you just lose your castling privileges. You cannot castle in this position because just bishop to s3, and thank you very much for the exchange. But here king to f1, and now you have rook to d8, just aligning against the queen. And after bishop to e2, now you just go for this knight caps on c3, b captures, knight to e5 now, and that knight on e5 is a beautiful piece. Somewhere along the line it could potentially be used after this bishop to f5 move towards guiding it there, and it's going to be a really strong piece there. If you go queen to c2, then just bishop to f5, and my position is fine. You don't want to trade my bishop for this very nice strong knight on d4, so obviously you're not going to capture it. And as long as I have the control over this diagonal, the knight is jumping in next, so that's going to be a really strong piece. But after bishop to b5, here bishop to g4 was played, and it's supposedly a missed opportunity by the ancients, but don't mind it. A bishop caps on c6, we have b captures, queen to a4 now, but now just comes e4, and e4 is a beautiful move in this position. While I was watching the coverage live, hey, bishop caps on f3, it seemed like the obvious choice in this position, and it does, because you're just ruining the pawn structure as well. But e4 in this position, I was just watching it, and Gukesh was taking his time. He was not going for bishop caps on f3, which seemed like an obvious choice, but the thing is that the game could have easily gone for a draw if you go for this. Engine gives it a 0.7 advantage, but sometimes the best move is not the best move, because it doesn't create complications in the game as much as you want it to. That's why here e4, and now here knight to d2, and now just comes this knight caps on c3. We have rook captures and just rook to b8 in this position. Now queen to c2 and queen to d5, centralizing the queen, always a good move. Here just h3, attacking the bishop, and bishop moves all the way back, and moving it all the way back, it has a reason to it, because now he just castles and getting the king to safety, which you wanted to do all along. But now bishop to a6, and this bishop is now jumping in towards that very juicy d3 square. A rook to e1, bishop to d3, now attacking the queen, and here queen to c1, and now that bishop is gonna remain a thorn in your position for as long as you can remember. And if you go for a move like rook to b5 in this position, it just makes so much sense, because now you want to be able to double up. Maybe you can put some pressure there. And if you go for rook to d1 in this position, just queen to h5, I can just shift the entire game towards the king side, and your king side is going to be a little bit weak. And if you go for this rook caps on c6, yes, you must be wondering about why not just capture the low hanging fruit here, just grabbing a complete pawn. Well, rook captures on b2. And now if you go for queen captures, this queen captures here and king moves, and you can already see that I've just infiltrated inside your position, just h6, and my position would be slightly bit better. But here after queen to c1, rook to e6 was played, and it's a fine move, no issues. Here just knight to f1, and here we have h6, but just b4. And knight to f1 is a move that you want to actually not allow the maybe the queen to g5, queen to rook to g6 in this position to target that somewhere along the line. I'm not asking the queen and the rook to double up. I'm just saying that somewhere along the line in multi-purpose moves, you can just move the rook there, maybe even sacrifice the pawn here on c6, and you can utilize that g file for the rook to, or for the queen to somewhere along the line, just capture. But here just rook to b5, nothing on those lines. Here just knight to g3 and just a5. And here in this position, queen to d2 would have been a very nice move. I mean, just a calm move. You can allow this a captures, and after this a captures, you play just queen to d6, just trying to put some extra pressure there. And once knight goes to e2, you play this bishop captures on e2, finally grabbing that, and yes, sacrificing a strong bishop, because here after queen captures, rook captures, and rook caps on b4 and king to h2. The thing is that you do have an outside pass pawn, and it's worth it, although this position is going to be a draw. But still, I mean, anyone who can push for a win in this position is definitely going to be the person who's playing with the black pieces. But after a5, here b captures on a5 was played. Now just comes c5, and here in this position just queen to d2, again going for the same moves, but definitely in the order that in the order that you wanted to. And you can see with this b caps on a4 move, the pawn structure has been ruined. But worst of it all, you have given Gukesh a very nice idea to be able to win this game, and the move came in right after this. Here just c4, and you can see that's not just a annoying bishop. Now that's a bishop that's going to win you this game. Here knight to e2 was played. Now just comes this rook to a6, knight to f4 attacking the queen, queen to e5, and here just going for rook e to c1, and here rook b captures on a5, finally grabbing that and also putting that pressure there. And you can see the trouble is not only losing that pawn, but the trouble comes that you cannot just keep the rook here to defend the pawn from moving forward, and it's going to be really difficult and disastrous even to be able to just allow the pawn to be pushed with the help of the queen guiding it. So here queen to a2 was played, just moving the king and not the rook. Here just rook to a7, and now just comes this a knight to e2, king to h7, a very beautiful move, because here the thing is that you are now just getting the king to safety and also asking a question to white here: what are you going to do about the situation? And you don't have any moves. Say knight to d4 was played, but the thing is that the knight to d4 is not a good move, and you can see the valuation shifting in the favor of the person with the black pieces, and that's only because of the fact that there is external pressure. That knight on d4 is a beautiful piece, don't discourage that, but the thing is that it's just too much pressure, and you cannot save all of the things. That's why black is getting advantage. But here queen to c5, and now rook to a1, queen to b6, and queen to d2, just playing waiting moves. And these are not waiting moves, these are basically both the players are very much down on the clock, and they are playing on seconds, and it's difficult to find the correct idea. Here rook to b7 was played. Now just comes rook a to c1, queen to a6, and just rook to a1, rook to a4 now, and here just going for queen to d1. You could have also gone for this rook to b6 in this position. Rook to b6 is saying that I'm just shifting the entire game towards the king side. Queen to e1, you play rook to g5, a4, and here rook b to g6, doubling up towards the g file. G3 is basically forced. And now if you go for this queen to c8 in this position, just threatening to pick up that and sacrificing the rook to win this game. Here king to g2, but here rook to h5 comes, and now you're in a lot of trouble, because here queen to h1 is the only move, and you can see the evaluation shifting in black's favor. But here after rook to a1, rook to a4 was played, and not shifting the game there, but you would want to actually just play it here. And Hikaru had some time on the clock, better than Gukesh, but he just consumed it right here. queen to d1, and now just comes rook to b2, and now that rook is jumping inside the position. It's not going to be a pretty game. Here queen to g4. Now finally the queen is loose, but what exactly are you targeting? Everything is defended. Bishop is defending everything. This king is the safest king on the planet, and now my rook is inside your position. It's not at all looking good. Here queen to f6 comes, and now I'm already threatening this, so you have to be careful. Here queen to g4, defending against it, but just rook to b3, and rook to b3 is a powerful move, because the thing is that you cannot capture it with the knight, because this is hanging, you don't want that to happen. And if you go for this rook caps on b3 in this position, just c captures, and after this knight captures, I have this very powerful queen to b2, hitting this, and yeah, it's not going to be at all easy. Queen to g4, queen caps on b3, queen to f5 check, and just going for this g6, attacking the queen, also guarding the f7 pawn. My position is amazing. But here just rook c to c1 was played. That's the best move recommended by the engine. So Hikaru, even low on the clock, finding the best moves, but it's not going to be enough. Here just rook b captures on e3, grabbing that pawn finally, and rook caps on e3, rook captures. And I told you about that, once the rook moves, that pass pawn is going to be pushed, and it's going to be very difficult to stop it. Here h4, but comes c3, king to h2, but even c2. And now that pass pawn has reached its limit, you're going to have to keep the rook there to be able to stop it from promoting. Here h5, but that is not going to work out in this position. Here just rook to a5. Now that is coming in, and it's going to be very difficult to try and stop and do anything in this position. Here queen to g4 was played still, but now in this position comes the final blow. Here Gukesh goes for queen captures on f2, and it was on this move, on just move 46, that hit Hikaru Nakamura resigned the game, and also his clock ran out, and Gukesh got this spectacular victory against the world number 2, and he beat him like in a really powerful positional battle. I mean, finding all of these moves is not at all easy, especially where Gukesh was the one who was in time trouble, but he trusted his intuition, he trusted his gut, and that came in handy, and he was able to finally get a victory against the world number 2. So yeah, thank you for watching. I'll be coming back with some of these amazing games, so stay tuned to the channel, stay updated, and I'll be seeing you guys very soon. Thank you very much for watching.